Today on The Way of Ramen, I'm taking another crack at making some shoyu ramen using just one whole chicken. I tried this last year and it was just horrible. It tasted like a fart or something. This one turned out much better, so stay tuned. So about a year ago, I tried to make a video for a one chicken ramen. The idea being it was probably something that most people could get their hands on and it would be easy to make, and it just turned out to be a complete disaster. Easily top 3 worst bowls I've ever made in my life. And so this week I wanted to run it back and see if I could use what I learned over the past year to make a better version of that bowl. To keep things consistent, I bought the exact same chicken as last time. The big theory was the chicken itself was just not great, so I figured if this one turned out terrible too, it was just the chicken. And I'm off to a terrible start already because this chicken was still frozen, really hard to break down, but I was able to do it somehow without freezing off my fingers. I made sure to rinse out the carcass as best I could this time. Another theory was that I missed some of the guts, so I went really deep in, got all that hidden guts and gunk out of there. Then I pre-boiled the bones for just 1 minute to defunk them just a bit. I'm also not using the leg thigh portion of the chicken, as some people told me that that could be the reason as well that it turned out so terrible. So I just broke those down and kept those in the freezer for later. I'm also using some chicken feet this time. Completely optional, not technically one chicken anymore, but chicken feet are a great source of gelatin for the soup, and I thought it would help give it a better mouthfeel. I ended up with about 2 kilograms of chicken parts, so I'm filling my big pot of water with 4 liters of water. Got the water heated up and then I added my bones in along with the wing section, and I also decided to use the chicken breast in the soup rather than make chicken chashu this time because chicken breasts actually have a lot of great flavor for broths. Then I threw in the chicken feet and then I let that go at a bare simmer for 6 hours. I checked the pot around 15 minutes in to see if there's any scum, and I skimmed off anything that was in there. While the soup was going, I decided to use the chicken skin from the chicken to make some Shoyu Aroma oil. So I put the skin into a pot of water, heated it up, and then when the fat started to render out, I skimmed off any of the scum that came up first to try to keep the chicken fat as clean as possible. And then when there was just a nice layer of chicken fat at the top of the water, I began to scoop it out with a ladle. If you have a fat separator, you don't have to be as careful as I'm being here. Still need to get one of those for myself. But there was not as much Shoyu here as I would have liked. It probably got enough for about 2 to 3 servings, so I need to figure out a way to stretch this out. So I filmed this the next day, but you can easily do this right after you skim the chicken fat. I put whatever fat I had into a pot and then cut it with some canola oil. And I'm gonna make a negi oil or scallion oil instead. So I somehow lost the footage, but when the oil was hot, I added in some green onions and some garlic. And then we're just gonna cook this until it's nicely brown. And more importantly, you're looking for the aroma to come out. You know, that's why it's called aroma oil. Anyways, I added a little bit of sesame oil right at the end, and then I just strained this out. I think I cooked it for around 45 minutes, but the timing isn't nearly as important as the smell. If it smells good, it's probably done. If it smells raw, it's not done yet. After 3 hours at a bare simmer, the soup kind of looked like this and it was smelling pretty good, so I went outside to pick some aromatics to add to it. I've been growing some green onion and ginger in the backyard of the lab, and so that's what I'm going to be using. I think I'm like many of you who have a hard time sourcing Japanese ramen ingredients, but I think that shouldn't stop us from trying to make ramen with what we can get our hands on. As we say in Hawaii, cook what get, and this is turning out to be a batch of cook what get ramen. And if you think about it for just a little bit, that's kind of where all the regional ramen in Japan came from anyway. They were all just making ramen with things that they could easily get their hands on. So I'm not reinventing the wheel here or anything. Everyone was just trying to make the best food they could with what they had access to. So anyways, I just washed and chopped the green onion and the ginger and then added them into the pot. And then I'm gonna let that go for another 3 hours or so. And after another 3 hours of cooking, 6 hours total, the soup kind of looked like this. It reduced quite a bit, but it smelled great, looked great, so I decided to strain it out then. And I don't know if it's just me, but straining soup after it's been simmering for hours is kind of my favorite part about making ramen. I think I even prefer it over eating the ramen. I just love seeing how clear I can get it, what it looks like, how it smells. It's just my favorite part about making ramen. I also taste tested the soup here, and to my delight, it didn't taste like a fart this time, so I was halfway there already, right? I got the soup, I just gotta make sure I get a good tare to match. I thought it was gonna be a piece of cake, but after a few failed tares that didn't match the soup, I finally landed on this one. So it's a really simple one: 250 milliliters of koikuchi shoyu, or just your standard Japanese soy sauce, 20 milliliters of tamari, and I think you could also probably use saishikome shoyu here too, 5 milliliters of mirin, and 3 grams of brown sugar. I'm just gonna heat this all up and mix it all together, and then once it comes to a simmer, you can take it off the heat and it's done. This recipe actually comes from my favorite ramen YouTuber, Ramen Rotas. He has a cookbook, so I got the recipe from his cookbook. I'll link up his channel in the description below. It's all in Japanese, but it's really high quality, great stuff for ramen. I'm cutting up the white part of some green onion here. I'm gonna put this in the bottom of the bowl before adding the soup. And I'm also cutting up some of the other part of the green onion to make some fancy green onion topping. So finally, to put everything together, I got 300 milliliters of soup in a pot and heated up. This was only necessary because I shot this over 2 days, so if you're gonna eat the ramen the same day you cook the soup, not a big deal, you don't have to worry about this. I'm also testing out Ramen Lord's Tokyo Shoyu noodle for this bowl. Recipe for these noodles are in his book, which I will link in the description below. I'm just gonna cook these for about 1 minute. And while the noodles are cooking, I'm gonna add into a warm bowl 20 milliliters of the Shoyu Tare, about 15 milliliters or so of the negi aroma oil, and some of the chopped white part of the green onion. I always try to time this part so the soup is almost boiling right when the noodles are just about done cooking. So I add super hot soup to the bowl, and then I strain the noodles, and then I add the noodles into the bowl too. I topped it with some chashu and some green onions, and I tasted the soup, and it tasted to me like it needed just a little bit more tare, so I just drizzled that on the green onions. And that, my friends, is a bowl of shoyu ramen made mostly of just one chicken. I guess I kind of cheated, I added a little bit more chicken feed, but it's completely optional, you don't need to do that. You can do this with just one chicken, and it tasted much, much better than last year, but that's just part of the story. But before I get into the story, I added some layu that I had from the spicy tonkotsu. First time trying it, and honestly, it's pretty damn good, so I'm gonna have to work on this in the future. But anyways, back to the story time. I've said it many times on this channel, but just to reiterate one more time for the new viewers, I'm not a professional chef. I've never gone to culinary school. I'm just a normal guy who kind of fell into this ramen making stuff, and I'm still honestly very new to all of this. And to be completely transparent, the first bowl of this batch of ramen tasted terrible. I tried to blend a dashi to make more servings, that didn't work. The original tare I designed for this bowl was just trash. The chiyu from this chicken honestly kind of sucked too. There was just a ton of setbacks. To get to this bowl that I'm actually kind of enjoying here, took eating 2 to 3 bowls of just garbage ramen that I just hated eating, and it was a terrible experience. In the past, I probably would have just put out a fail video and moved on, but over the past year, I kind of realized that making ramen and this channel has actually become a way for me to become a better version of myself. The emperor and stoic Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And what I think he meant by that is you can only really become great by struggling. How we respond to challenges is what eventually comes to define us as who we are. And the only real way to get better at pretty much anything is to repeatedly encounter these obstacles and overcome them. The way of ramen was never about showing people the way to make ramen. It was always a documentation of the path I took into the unknown with the hopes of one day becoming good at this. And who knows if I'll actually get there. But honestly, it doesn't really matter to me because each crappy fart-tasting bowl of ramen that I make when I'm trying my hardest allows me the opportunity to become not just a better cook, but a better person as well. To me, this is all just practice to just learn how to struggle better. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you're all struggling well, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.